absolutely no chance of winning. 4.6 million of you will now be given the chance to send a message to this Labour government that they're not only inept and clueless, but totally incompetent in such a way that's sending our great country into the gutter fast. So for now, let's see what happens in May. But one thing that made me laugh today is the behaviour of the so-called Liberal Democrats. Look at this post on X from leader Ed Davey shortly after the government announced they'd bottled it. It read, "Liberal Democrats have fought tooth and nail to stop this stitch-up, and the government has been forced into a humiliating U-turn." Tooth and nail. Look, I don't know what Ed has been smoking, but maybe it's the same kind of stuff Zach Polanski and the Greens want to legalise back in Britain. But in what universe did the Lib Dems fight tooth and nail to hold this dangerous government to account? By shouting about elections on social media and pointing fingers in Parliament? Because nobody with a brain will give credit to the Lib Dems for that and for Labour U-turning on the local elections. In fact, it's widely being reported and accepted that government lawyers folded under direct pressure because they knew they'd lose the legal argument against reform lawyers. That's why they're now even paying Reform UK's costs in court. Here's the letter from the government this morning. Take a look if you're watching on telly. Do you see the word Liberal Democrat anywhere on that letter? I don't. In fact, the truth is the Lib Dems even run one of the councils that are cancelling these very elections up in Cheltenham. Poor people of Cheltenham, eh? Great racing, but naff council. Davey and his party are more known for pulling inane stunts like this than his work for either being a Liberal or a Democrat. Paddleboarding, dancing, going down water slides. In fact, their juvenile behaviour matches their rhetoric too, because this is what Davey told GB News last year.
Liberal Democrats share no values at all with Nigel Farage and Reform.
Yeah, we know you share no values. You are neither, as I said, a Liberal in the classic sense, nor are you a Democrat. You accuse Reform UK of being a fascist party, yet it was Reform who stumped up the huge wad of cash to force Labour into this move to hold elections. And what did you do, Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey? You did nothing. And yet you have the gall to take a victory lap on social media, pretending the Lib Dems actually made a difference to something. You didn't. Ed Davey has today proven once again that the Liberal Democrats are one of the most pointless political parties going. They were so useless last time they had a real chance at making change in government and to this country that they collapsed from 57 seats in the coalition down to just 8 afterwards. They were useless then, and they're useless now. An embarrassment if I ever saw one. But with me now, right on time, is former Liberal Democrat councillor Matthew Holbert. Matthew, good morning. Thank you for your company. Sorry for being a little bit harsh there, but I felt I should wear my heart on my sleeve this evening after seeing that Ed Davey post. What's your response to that, Matthew?
Well, I mean, my response, Ben, is, tell us what you really think. I just don't think you went quite far enough there. Look, I mean, let me say to you, you clearly don't like us, but we've got 72 MPs, we've got thousands of councillors, we run 70+ councils in charge of billions of pounds of public money, and our councillors, when we run a council, get re-elected. And you know why we get re-elected? Because we run those councils competently. That's why we get re-elected.
OK, what was Ed Davey doing today, taking victory laps, saying that Liberal Democrats, the party, forced the government into a U-turn?
Well, I think we added to the pressure along with lots of others. And, Reform played their part.
What did you do, Matthew? Tell the nation what you did.
We spoke up loud and clear on channels like your wonderful own, Ben, about why these elections should not be delayed, because democracy delayed is, of course, democracy denied, and that's why these elections should take place. And yet, you referenced the one Lib Dem council that wanted the elections delayed, but actually most of the councils that wanted the elections delayed were Labour councils and Tory councils. And you know why? Because they're scared of the Lib Dems and others taking their seats. That's why.
Well, how many councils, reform councils, wanted the elections cancelled?
Feel free to tell me.
Well, you must know the answer. It's 0, isn't it? So even just one council, Matthew, makes the Liberal Democrats neither Liberal nor Democrats. It was Reform UK who had the balls and the money to stump up their own gamble at the High Court, paying lawyers very hefty sums indeed to hold this government to account. The very party, by the way, that your leaders, maybe not you personally, but your leaders and many people associated with your party call far right or fascist. What kind of fascist party would stump up hundreds of thousands of pounds, potentially millions of pounds, to force the government to have elections? Do you condemn that kind of language towards Reform?
Well, I wouldn't use that language, but what I would say is that my party leader in the clip that I'm very pleased you played out, saying that we have nothing in common with reform, is quite right. Although actually we do have one thing in common with them, because their official policy
you'll need the Liberal nor Democrats, as I keep saying.
Their official policy is still actually, I believe, that they agree with proportional representation. Oh, unless they've shelved that, now they've suddenly gone up in the polls. Maybe they have no values at all, Reform UK.
OK, Matthew, thank you for tuning in this morning. I appreciate your company. I do really, I mean that. I genuinely mean it, because it's good to... I'd rather sit on this show for 2 hours straight talking, debating people I don't agree with, rather than sitting in an echo chamber nodding my head. So thank you for joining us tonight, Matthew Holbert, former Lib Dem councillor. Right, with me now is political advisor and author Stuart Thompson. Stuart, good morning. Thank you for your company this morning on The Late Show Live. What's your take on this sorry situation? I guess wider in terms of Keir Starmer, the 15th U-turn from this government. They don't really stand for anything, do they?
Well, they stand for plenty, Ben, and thanks for having me on this morning. I mean, look, take it back to why these elections were being postponed in the first place. It's because of local government reform. Now, that's taken longer than would ideally be, anticipated, but that's what caused the sort of initial round of delays. That reform will bring democracy closer to people. So the government is putting a lot of effort into rebuilding local government after the austerity years. So the reform of local government, the money for the places in places money that they've announced, nearly sort of £6 billion worth going into local communities. It's a huge sum of money. So look, is this an unfortunate turn? Absolutely, it is, and everybody would rather have got that local government reform up and running in the first instance. But we are where we are.
OK. What do you make of Keir Starmer's 15th U-turn, though? Because it does suggest... I mean, look, Keir Starmer, as we all know, was head of the CPS, head of public prosecutions. He prizes himself on being a very articulate and astute lawyer who was across the detail. But it seems, especially with this isolated case and maybe the 14 other U-turns he's done, that he and his government don't really think things through. If they did, why do they need to make so many U-turns?
Well, because they listen to the evidence, they listen to people, and they make changes. You can have that, or you can have a government... Should they not
listen to the evidence in the first place before making decisions?
Well, sometimes the evidence comes to light after the initial decision is made. You don't always have all the information straight away. And frankly, 15 U-turns, if it is 15, are nowhere near the amount of U-turns undertaken by Rishi Sunak or Boris Johnson, which were in the tens, if not early hundreds. So look, all governments make U-turns. All government make changes. It's if they listen to the evidence and to the people, that surely is a good thing and is democratic.
Okay. All right, well, I agree with you on that point, but I hate talking about the Tories and Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak and all that lot. They are old news. We know how bad they were, but can you give us an example of a U-turn from Rishi Sunak? You've just mentioned it.
You've certainly, at this time in the morning, Ben, you've certainly caught me off guard there. Not off the top of my head, it's mainly the Boris Johnson ones that I can remember more than any others, because, whether it's being challenged through the courts on PPE or prorogation of Parliament, there was so many to remember that, they sort of, come back into my head.
That's right, Stuart. It's early. I'll let you off. But it has to be said, on 15 U-turns is unprecedented for a government that's been in power for, 19, 20 months? I think you have to accept even just a minuscule of the argument, Stuart, that this government thus far, even for Labour voters, has been a massive disappointment, because the argument is levied at them. They have no ideology. Keir Starmer doesn't really stand for anything. He talks about an island of strangers one minute and then condemns it the next. He doesn't really know what he stands for, does he?
No, I think the government does know what it stands for. Look, have the last 18 months been what people were expecting? Probably not. No, I mean the changes in recent weeks have sort of shown that to pass. But when you look at the changes being made to the NHS and the cancer plan, the cuts in the waiting lists for the NHS, the money going into local government, as I've mentioned, cuts on prescription fees. So no, there is a very clear agenda. Is that being communicated as clearly as the government would want? No, I don't think it is. And that will start to change. They still have 2.5 years before a general election, Ben. So there's still plenty of time to turn this around. But it needs to start showing that it is delivering. It is, but it needs to communicate that more effectively.
All right, so I guess it's just a case of trust me, bro, it's happening, but it is happening. Stuart, you're a kind man. Appreciate your company this morning on the Late Show Live. Hopefully we'll catch up again soon. Political advisor
Pleasure.
and author Stuart Thompson. GBNews.com/your say. Let us know what you think about that. A little bit of breaking news to bring you in the Late Show Live studio. US President Donald Trump has said that he would be involved indirectly, quote unquote, in talks between Iran and the United States over Tehran's nuclear program. He also said Iran wants to make a deal. So he's saying that the Ayatollah in Iran wants to make a deal. This is despite, of course, and we've been talking about it for the past couple of nights, haven't we, about President Trump's promise, I interpret it as, that help is on the way to the 30,000 Iranian protesters who have been slaughtered in the streets in Iran by this despot Islamist regime. So President Trump tonight saying he would be involved indirectly in talks between Iran and the United States over their nuclear program. He said Iran does want to make a deal. My panel are with me. Matthew and Laurie, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good evening. What should we talk about? I mean, not much to say about Iran there really, but in terms of local elections, it's a massive win today for Reform UK. Starmer and the lawyers bottling it before they got to court.
It's a huge win. I mean, Nigel Farage said he's not going to have his day in court on Thursday, but the voters are going to have their day at the ballot box. And this is a tremendous win for reform, as you've said, and I've been following the last several nights in particular. What is happening is a tremendous win for an upstart insurgent party that is making the case to the voters because the major parties in the United Kingdom are not bringing solutions to the table. And of course, Labour is the not ready for primetime players.
Do you know much about Ed Davey, the guy we were just talking about?
You know, I haven't heard about the Lib Dems in 4 or 5 years.
No, I mean, my argument tonight is they're utterly... Have you heard of them, Laurie?
Not really.
No, they're just totally pointless.
Are they off the radar for everyone?
They're like, look, I love the people of Stoke, but I'm a football fan, I'm an Arsenal fan, and I look at them as like Stoke City. They're just a pointless football club. Lib Dem is just a pointless political party. Taking victory laps today... Sorry, it's just really wound me up today. Taking victory laps from Reform's big gamble, putting money... Benjamin Butterworth's down the line. Let's speak to Benjamin. Benjamin, what's your take on Ed Davey and the Lib Dems? What's the point of the Lib Dems?
Well, I mean, they got a huge number of votes at the last election, and they have more members of Parliament than they've ever had. So I think it'd be wrong to dismiss those millions of British people that voted for them. I think evidently it was the legal challenge that pulled the government up. But, you know, politicians are there to make the views clear in Parliament on behalf of the constituents, and that's what Sir Ed Davey did.
Sir Ed Davey, well done. But it's the gall, Benjamin. Ed Davey taking to Twitter to say we have fought tooth and nail. I just think you are literally lying. What have they done, as far as you can see, to stop Labour cancelling elections?
Well, I don't think he's lying because they will have done things in Parliament, which is how democracy works. Well, you'll have to ask Sir Ed that question, or Matthew Holbert, as you had on a moment ago. But look, you know, I actually think that it's a shame that these elections will go ahead because they will be happening in local authorities that are about to be ripped up and redrawn. And I just think it's deeply inefficient, a waste of public money to elect people to run organisations that won't exist in 12 months. That's stupid. Why not just wait a little longer and then elect people to a body that will actually function?
Because we've waited years. They were cancelled the first time round, and a democratic country doesn't run democratically if you don't have elections and hold the politicians who make decisions to account. What's your take, Matthew, on the facts that Benjamin there is saying we still shouldn't have gone ahead with these elections, cancel them even further, wait even longer? As an American, I mean, your whole country is founded on the idea of democracy and elections.
Well, as Matthew Holbert said, democracy delayed is democracy denied. What is most fascinating to me about parliamentary governments as an American in a two-party system is the fact that a party like Reform UK can burst onto the scene in the last several years and make the case, whereas a party like the Lib Dems, who have taken many seats on councils, many seats in Parliament, could be washed out potentially in an election like what's happening in May with the council elections. It's really fascinating as a political observer in the United States.
Yeah, and what a coincidence that every single area, Laurie, that these elections were going to be cancelled, polling shows Reform would have wiped the slate clean with them all. If President Trump was cancelling elections, I know you guys, Laurie of the left, call Trump a fascist pretty much every day. But if he really was cancelling elections,
Great way to have me
you'd call him a
start,
fascist, no?
Thanks for teeing me up there.
You would call him a fascist, though, wouldn't you? Well, you do anyway.
No, Ben, I'm not coming on here and doing that. No. No.
Do you not call Trump a fascist?
No. I'm
No?
not,
Okay.
I'm
Well,
not out there in those rallying camps, you know, that are no kings rallies and saying all those crazy things that you
Okay.
guys want to lump all Liberal Dems into.
Well,
So nope, not me.
Lots of, okay, I'll give you that. Lots of people from your side of the argument do
There
throw
you
that
go.
term around.
Thank
so
you.
there we go. Right, Benjamin, thank you. Stick around with us. We'll be going through the papers very shortly. gbnews.com/your say. Let us know your thoughts. Still ahead tonight on The Late Show Live.
Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew. Do you think he should testify?
I think everybody should testify.
Oh, Hillary Clinton's piping up a lot in the last couple of days. I'm not sure what she's up to. She's got a new book out or something. But anyway, tonight she's called on Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew, of course, to testify in Congress here in Washington, D.C. over his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He's not obliged to, will he? This is The Late Show Live. Back in just a thing.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Late Show Live. I think I've upset a few Stoke City fans by saying they're a pointless club. They're not, they're a great club. I've just had far too many cold Wednesday evenings in November at Stoke City. It's, I say it from a place of love. Tony Pulis just terrorised Arsenal back in the day, so I love you, Stoke. I love you, Stoke City. Right, let's move on. Hillary Clinton has called for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to testify before Congress over his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. That was in an interview with the BBC. Take a look.
Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew. Do you think he should testify?
I think everybody should testify.
The former presidential candidate also spoke about her links to Epstein as well as her husband Bill Clinton's.
We have no links. We have a very clear record that we've been willing to talk about, which my husband has said. He took some rides on the airplane for his charitable work. I don't recall ever meeting him.
Did you ever meet Ghislaine Maxwell?
I did on a few occasions.
Yeah. And she also insisted she and Bill will testify.
We will show up, but we think it would be better to have it in public. Because what we want is for everybody to get to the facts about this. We have nothing to hide. We have called for the full release of these files repeatedly.
With me now is civil and criminal litigator Mitchell Eppner. Mitchell, great to see you. Forgive me, when it comes to Hillary Clinton particularly, I mean, let's talk about Haiti, let's talk about Benghazi, or 33,000 emails.
No.
I just don't trust her, unfortunately.
Mr. Leo, please. I used to be a federal prosecutor in charge of sex trafficking cases. And to compare Hillary Clinton to Donald Trump and the Jeffrey Epstein coterie within the Trump administration is frankly beneath you and any broadcast.
Okay, Mitchell, why was there look, I'm not saying they did anything wrong, but I'm asking very pertinent questions, actually. Why was there a portrait of Bill Clinton in Epstein's house wearing a blue dress with red high heels? Any ideas?
Yes, it's in the files. It's very clear. Jeffrey Epstein was a sociopath who tried to insinuate himself into positions of power by pretending he had connections that he didn't have in order to create connections that he could use, such as his connections to Donald Trump.
But Bill Clinton did have connections to Epstein, though. He's pictured in a hot tub.
Bill Clinton took a couple of rides on Jeffrey Epstein's plane in order to go to charitable events.
He's there with Ghislaine Maxwell. I mean, that is a link. I mean, what's going on there, Mitchell?
So let me be really clear about this, because I don't understand what your agenda is here. But the agenda of former federal prosecutors such as myself is to get to the truth about what happened, and in particular, the people who exploited underage girls and raped them for over a decade, and who were
it's very important.
Who were absolutely acting above the law. That is the thing that you should be concentrating on. I do not understand why you're asking me these other questions. My understanding was that you wanted to talk to me about the Andrew who used to be known as Prince and the legal jeopardy that he's currently in.
Okay, apologies. We'll talk about the former Prince Andrew, but the Epstein saga, the tragedy that is Jeffrey Epstein and his torrid behaviour, is about very powerful men, the elites, soliciting young girls for sex and using their power and influence, which includes maybe not, he denies it, Bill Clinton. Why was he pictured there with a young girl on his lap? Why was he in a hot tub with Ghislaine Maxwell? We'll talk about Andrew.
Mr. Leo, I'm sorry, but you are going off onto a tangent. There are literally millions of pages of documents showing the people who you should be talking about, and that you're focused on Bill Clinton is beneath you.
I don't understand why it's beneath me. I've just shown you pictures, Mitchell.
Well, maybe you're not as good a journalist as I thought you were.
US president.
But a good journalist would be asking other questions.
Okay, what would you,
So
if you were
let's
in my
talk
seat now,
about-
then, Mitchell, what would you be asking?
If I were in your seat right now, I would be talking about why the Trump administration on 5 separate occasions has said that they've released everything and they did a full investigation, and 4 times they've had to swallow it, and the 5th time I'm virtually certain they will again. That seems like a much more pertinent question.
Well, I agree with you. I think they should have put all these files out straight away. There are people who have been redacted who aren't victims. So I agree with you. But we're talking about Bill Clinton. Let's talk about Trump then. You seem to want to talk about President Trump. What is the link between Epstein and Trump? Because we know for a fact from the files that, I mean, he argues that the files absolve President Trump. He was the first to he called the police on Trump in 2006. It was Trump's DOJ in 2019 who arrested Epstein. Was it not Trump's DOJ who arrested Epstein in 2019?
So Donald Trump's claim that he blew the whistle on Jeffrey Epstein in 2006 is disproven by the files themselves. Jeffrey Epstein 100% continued to have a relationship with Donald Trump long after Trump contends that he threw him out of Mar-a-Lago. So now it is certainly true that the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, an office that Donald Trump hated while he was president the first time around, did bring a prosecution against Jeffrey Epstein. That's absolutely true, and that is to the credit of Maureen Comey, the woman who Donald Trump has fired for her work.
Okay, but President Trump was president. You would have thought if that she was pursuing Epstein, he would have had a say in it. He could have stopped it, no? And let's talk about the fact that...
I mean, let's be really clear, because I was around in those circles at the time. Donald Trump tried to put his thumb on what Jeffrey Berman, who was the U.S. attorney, was doing, and he threatened to fire Berman, and Berman said, go ahead and fire me if you want to. That is 100% what happened. If you have gotten misinformation, I'm sorry.
Okay, Mitchell, last question to you. Thank you for your company tonight. Last question. Do you think, though, they tried to impeach President Trump multiple times? Well, they did impeach him multiple times.
No, they did impeach him. He just didn't get convicted.
Yeah, they impeached him a couple of times. They tried to jail him. They debanked him. They debanked his family. They tried to destroy him. There's absolutely no way they would have wanted him to pursue a second term. Virginia Giuffre, who claims she was trafficked by Epstein, she of course killed herself even after getting a £12 million settlement with the former Prince Andrew. She wrote in her book, From Beyond the Grave, that President Trump was a nice guy and never did anything. Do you think, logically, whether you hate Trump or not, you like his politics or not, do you not think logically, if there was any proof, and we're still waiting for it, maybe you can tell me where it is, that President Trump was a pedo who dealt with girls with Jeffrey Epstein, it would have come out by now? Just, you seem like a clever guy.
I think that Donald Trump's deep entanglement with Jeffrey Epstein is not necessarily about whether or not he was a pedophile. I don't know that one way or another, but rather whether he was dealing in the manipulation of people who were in Jeffrey Epstein's web. And your agenda right now is frankly shameful.
What agenda do I have, Mitchell?
You are trying to exonerate Donald Trump, a man who has lied over and over and over again about his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm sorry, shame on you.
But when you say involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, if he wasn't sleeping with trafficked girls or being a paedophile or a predator, what is his involvement? I'm asking you for the proof. What is the smoking gun here about President Trump and Jeffrey Epstein? We're all waiting for it. We've been waiting for it for weeks. What is it?
The smoking gun is that Donald Trump claimed that he stopped having any interactions with Jeffrey Epstein in 2006, and there are literally thousands of documents that show he continued to have a relationship with him long after that. What the depth of that relationship was, whether it included having sex with underage girls, I don't know the answer to that, but I don't know why you want to exonerate Donald Trump on a record that doesn't allow it.
I don't. It seems you're getting more upset about the fact that there is no smoking gun about President Trump, as opposed to Bill Clinton in a hot tub with Ghislaine Maxwell, Bill Clinton with a young woman on his lap, Bill Clinton in a portrait with a dress on. You know, it seems you have an agenda, Mitchell. But I respect you for coming on. Thank you, though. Criminal litigator, Mitchell Lepner, civil and criminal litigator. Right, GBNews.com/your say. Panel, Matthew, what do you think of that?
You know, there's a lot of questions here, and I think that access to politicians in the United States is in both parties. What I'm noticing from Northern Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie, who is trying to get to the bottom of this, is that in European countries, 20-plus politicians or appointees have lost their positions, and not a single politician in the United States has lost a title for affiliation with Jeffrey Epstein. I do think this is it's a club for politicos and well-connected people, and we ain't in it here in the studio. And so there's a lot of questions, and I think the more we find out, the more is released, the more people will be held accountable.
No, I agree with you. Laurie, I'm not so much of a Trump sycophant that I will defend him to the high heavens, but until somebody gives me some definitive proof that he was on the same level as, say, I'm not going to name names, I don't want to lose my job, but people who were dealing with trafficked girls, who were predators and paedophiles, I will compare them to the likes of Bill Clinton, who was pictured in his hot tub, who was pictured with women on his lap, who flew on the Lolita Express multiple times.
I don't know why that gentleman could not answer your question that you asked specifically about those things, but with respect to him, it is true. You brought him on to talk about Andrew, and you never once asked him about Andrew. So I hope we can get to...
Well, there was some confusion there. We played Hillary Clinton's comments about Andrew, so I was talking about the Clintons, so that's fine.
Yes, but Ben, Trump is mentioned over 38,000 times in these redacted files that are now trying to be unredacted. And the Clintons, I mean, both of them went to, I believe it was Yale Law School. Smart on them that they both being held in contempt by Congress for not testifying. You know what that means, right? It actually opens up discovery to the entire investigation. So great. That forces the hand of members of Congress to get these from the Department of Justice. And that's why you continue to see Pam Bondi and others being hauled over to Capitol Hill to have to testify about this. And I know this is one of your biggest issues. And I hope that you continue to beat the drum on all of these details and facts being released, because that's what needs to be done. And the more that start to fall, like the gentleman in the UAE that just had to resign, and people falling from across the entire globe that were involved in this, good on them. Like, that's what needs to happen. And so if you want to talk about people overseas that are having to resign or lose their titles or whatever, the same damn thing should be done here in the United States. And I'm going to say it to the camera. And I'm sorry if I say the word damn, but that's how people here in the United States of America feel, especially within this MAGA crowd that is like 50%, divided right now. That's how they feel. Justice needs to be served.
Yeah, more
and the fact that Pam Bondi did refuse to meet with any of the survivors who stood behind her on Capitol Hill, and I see everyone is shaking their head about this, and she refused to meet with every single one of them, and there was proof in those committee hearing rooms, is absolutely atrocious, and it's unthinkable. And this is what's happening here.
Yep,
and if we stop paying attention, then it goes away, and people are not going to let it go.
Well, it's certainly true that it's had a wider effect. Benjamin Butterworth, it's had more of an effect on the UK and the UAE, as Laurie just alluded to, than it has in America. Nobody really falling on their sword here yet.
India, Deepak Chopra. I mean, this is literally cards are falling across the globe.
Yeah, it's quite extraordinary. I mean, the chief legal officer of Goldman Sachs departed her position, so that's one American. But that's a woman, and there was no suggestion that she had done anything illegal with trafficked girls, but she had an evidenced friendship, and so she left Goldman Sachs. And I find it slightly revealing that the only American of seniority to leave a role is a woman, rather than the men that have evidently been behaving deeply disgusting ways. I mean, it's about time that
Don't be surprised. That's how it is here in this country. It's horrible. Thank you for pointing that out. I really appreciate that.
It's about time that the Epstein files became the Epstein trials. That is what's frustrating me. The fact that the names of these men who have abused women and children are still redacted. Clearly, the Department of Justice knows who they are. They have the unredacted versions, and yet these people are still in positions of power and authority, and, I dare say, in positions where they continue to be abusive if they get the chance.
And working in the Trump administration, no less. Lutnick? I mean, there are people that are actively working in U.S. government right now in this administration who are in these files.
Yeah, President Trump was asked about that the other day. Howard Lutnick, did you visit the island? He kind of just shrugged it off. Benjamin, thank you. We'll catch up in just a sec. Still ahead on The Late Show Live.
The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Oh dear, I'm not going to sing it again unless anyone pays me anyway.
Harmonise.
Not according to President Trump, who's tonight slams the Prime Minister and Ed Miliband for signing what he's called an inappropriate Green Deal with California Governor Gavin Newsom. Newsom trotting off to the UK today to sign this silly deal, which is not legal, not binding. We're getting stuck into that in a tick on The Late Show Live.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
gbnews.com/yoursay. Somebody has written, it's Glynis, I think. Glynis, thank you so much for your loyalty. I know you watch every night, and I do appreciate it. You've said the Democrat lawyer wants people to convict Trump on supposition, but complains because you ask what proof they have. And somebody else said, Ben, I don't know what the litigator's job is, but people should think twice before employing him. That's the most obvious evidence needed that Trump derangement syndrome exists. Well, I can reveal now exclusively. Shall I say this? He's just texted my producer and said, please do not contact me ever again. So he won't be on the show again. Somebody you might be pleased to. Right, President Trump is being credited today with helping save lives through policies designed to strengthen non-renewable energy production. Storm Fern resulted in significantly fewer casualties than past snowstorms here in the US, with fewer widespread outages despite bitter temperatures and heavy snowfall. Meanwhile, President Trump has tonight blasted the UK government after Energy Secretary Ed Miliband signed what he called an inappropriate green energy deal with California Governor Gavin Newsom. So Trump took to, well, he spoke to Politico actually. He said that the agreement was misguided and doubled down on his support for fossil fuels over renewables. He said the UK has got enough trouble without getting involved with Gavin Newscum, in his words. He added that it was inappropriate for Mr Newsom to strike such agreements and inappropriate for them to be dealing with him. With me now is the Director of Climate Media Coalition, Donica McCarthy. Donica, nice to see you. Thanks for staying up. Why was Gavin Newsom jetting off at 12 miles across the Atlantic, across the US from California, gas-guzzling jets, to go and sign a deal with Ed Miliband, which is non-binding, non-legal, and doesn't make a difference to anything? That's not very environmentally friendly, Donica.
Oh, good to hear you, Ben, discouraging aviation. I totally agree with you. We shouldn't be flying. We shouldn't be emitting.
No, I love it. I love flying.
A flight from Los Angeles to London emits around 2.5, 3 tons, which is around 6 years' worth of emissions for the average household in the UK. So I totally agree with you. We shouldn't be flying. But on the issue of renewables and the UK and California cooperating, I think one of the most extraordinary stories in this news story today is actually what a big news story it is for the UK. The Octopus energy company, which is based in London, has actually just developed a software that is now world-beating. They're called the Kraken, which is a crazy name, but it's worth $8.5 billion from a startup in Britain, which because that is actually designed for facilitating renewables and smart energy usage in our homes, which is making it cheaper to.
Sorry, what does that mean, Donica? What does it mean? Facilitating renewable. I mean, what is the software?
It's an amazing software that allows a home like mine, which has solar power during the day, to store it in a battery, and then the software can export it to the grid or import it from the grid, run my EV if I had an EV, and actually to make sure that I do that the cheapest, buying and selling it at the most. So people are actually now making money in houses and people with EVs in the UK. And that software is British made, and actually promoting it in California will help Britain's exports. It's good news.
Okay. I'm not really sure what any of that is, Donica, to be honest with you.
It's an £8.5 billion export market. It's an £8.5 billion company developed in Britain on the renewable energy market, which is actually good news, isn't it?
All right, I'll take your word for it that it's good news. Well done to Octopus Energy. What I will say, Donica, is in the United States, President Trump has eradicated net zero. He's gone back on regulation of climate emissions on cars, for example, making them cheaper and so on. And do you know what the US GDP was in the last, well, let's say the last quarter of 2025? What was their GDP, Donica? Do you know?
I'm not sure what GDP has got to do with this conversation, but actually the endangerment finding, you're absolutely right.
GDP, Donica, has everything to do with energy. Energy is the be-all and end-all of normal operating, prosperous, ambitious countries. 4.3% GDP here in America, 5.2% I think it was in the quarter after that. And meanwhile, the UK, we are struggling with 0.1% growth. We are crippling people's energy bills with stupid green levies. Nothing works. Nobody's bills are getting cheaper. When are our bills going to be £300 cheaper, Donica?
Okay, I absolutely agree. The UK has the most expensive electricity consumer prices in Europe. The reason why is not because of green tariffs. If actually you look at the wholesale price, which is what covers the sources of the energy, we are 14th or 15th. Why? Because 2/3 of our energy bills in the UK, Ben, are made up of non-green levies imposed by the Tory government. It's an extraordinary 2/3. So exactly. So £500 is actually profit for the privatised Tory privatised energy companies. £100 is because the National Grid privatised, sold to the Gulf oil billionaires and the American billionaires.
Okay, so what are Labour going to do about
that we actually need? Pardon?
So what are Labour going to do about it? That was the Tories. What are Labour going to do about it? Why are they still there?
They're taking the first step, which is actually they're removing the old levy, which was a green levy, from the teens, which was for the initial renewables. They're removing that and some of the social tariffs. But also, in our electricity bills, for example, we actually pay the cost of debts for people who can't pay their bills. It's crazy that poor people are paying for other poor people's debts. We need to remove these non-green levies, which make up 2/3 of our electricity bills in the UK.
I'd go further, Donica, and say I'd say we need to use those wind turbines, those massive turbines made in China. We need to get those and use them as a spear to torpedo the whole net zero insanity project, the deranged march to net zero. And then maybe we might get a little bit of GDP like they have in America, Donica. Thank you so much for staying up tonight. I appreciate your company, and we'll catch up soon. Donica McCarthy, Director of Climate Media Action. Thank you, Donica. Right, up next on The Late Show Live, all the front pages, including the Metro. The PM's vow to stop not the boats, because obviously he can't do that. He can't stop the boats, no matter what they do, to stop the bots. Back in just a tick on The Late Show Live.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, let's get stuck into the front page of the Metro. Benjamin Butterworth keen to talk about it. Me too, actually. It's Keir Starmer's social media ban for under-16s. Benjamin, welcome back. What's your take on this? The headline reads, PM's vow to stop the bots. I mean, it's focusing on AI bots, really, but the wider topic of the social media ban, are you in support of it?
Yeah, so this is off the back of the row that he had with Elon Musk about the AI app on the website Twitter, or X, which allowed you to sexualise image of kids and strangers. And the Prime Minister is saying that you should tighten the rules so that young people can't access AI bots that can do absolutely anything as they can now. And I have to say, I absolutely agree, I think, with banning under-16s from having unfettered access to social media. Australia is already doing it. Spain has announced it will change it. Because I just think that the way that young people are having their minds be remoulded by the slop that social media pours out, the way that it doesn't help them to be critical thinkers, that it gives them anxiety about their place in the world, about how they should look, I think it's really dangerous. And I think in a generation we'll look back at the idea we gave 13-year-olds social media accounts without any rules, a bit like how a generation before us, a 13-year-old might try a cigarette. It will seem just totally insane.
Yeah, do you know what? Intuitively, Laurie, this goes against everything I stand for: civil liberties, freedom of the internet. But as a parent, it's my worst nightmare to think of my two boys going on social media and interacting with the, as Ben calls it, slop that's pumped out.
Agreed. And especially with all of these cases that keep cropping up, whether or not you support it or not, as far as children receiving hormone replacement therapy, etc., I do believe that that is influenced or could be influenced by social media and some of these accounts and turning kids' minds. I just think it's abhorrent to give a kid a screen when they are at a young age, and it's a substitute for paying attention to them. I see it. I travel the world. I just came from another international trip, and I was sitting in a major airport, and I was just observing, and it's fascinating to me how many parents, instead of engaging with their kids, they decide to grab a phone themselves and then hand a screen to a 3- and 4-year-old instead of reading a book, instead of walking them around the airport terminal, etc. And so this is going on everywhere, and I ask parents to be more present. I know it's extremely difficult. I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job, but passing off a technological device to them versus spending quality time or teaching them a new skill or doing an activity with them to kind of open that creativity, etc., is stunting their growth. And we are of the generation where we have seen it both ways, right? We grew up without having these devices. So it's not like we're saying we're older and we know what's best and we want to take this away from you, but we've already seen in its not even infancy stages, the second iterative of this, how damaging this can be, and we need to put guardrails on.
Look at the effects, Matthew, it has on adults even, let alone kids whose minds are being moulded. But that said, it's a case, and I agree with Laurie, of a case of being a better parent, but do we need the ban as well?
You know, Ben, as someone whose parents handed me a cigarette at the age of 13 to try it for the first time, I thought it was absolutely disgusting, and I thought it was an excellent opportunity in this family, maybe not for every family, but to highlight something. My parents were lifelong smokers, and they handed me a cigarette at 13, and I said it was the most disgusting thing I've ever had. I've never smoked again, and I just don't think this is the place of the government. If you ban something, if you have a government edict to ban something, you're just going to drive the activity underground through VPNs and other subversive activity.
Agreed. Benjamin, you smoke about 40 a day, don't you? 10 seconds left.
No, I don't. But I think let's look to Australia. They've already done it. If they can do it without these VPN loopholes, then anyone else can do it.
All right, stick with us on the Late Show Live. There's a big debate brewing in New York City. Some Muslims there, pro-Palestinian campaigners, they want to ban dogs from New York City because they're dirty. And President Trump is speaking live shortly. See you in a tick.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update. It's a chilly start out there, risk of ice for many northern areas, but it is going to be a sunny day and a dry day for many of us. We've got a ridge of high pressure in charge, bringing that dry but cold start to the day. A few showers are still clipping eastern coasts of England in particular, and cloud will thicken from the southwest into this afternoon. That's as ahead of this band of rain pushing in from the southwest, strengthening winds as well around this area of rain. But for many of us, a dry day to come. Still fairly chilly feel, particularly across the east coast, with a northerly wind making it feel colder than it really is. But temperatures will be below average for the time of year actually into this afternoon. Now the cloud does continue to thicken across southern areas, but actually for many northern areas, Tuesday evening brings a very clear night. Another cold one, in fact, and where we've got lying snow, temperatures falling below -10 degrees by Wednesday morning. More in the way of cloud building up in towards parts of Northern Ireland, as well as more central areas of the UK. And as a result, temperatures won't fall quite as low, but there's still a risk of frost by the time we get to Wednesday morning. So that rain moves slightly closer, further inland into parts of southwestern England, parts of South Wales and Northern Ireland, seeing some rain, potentially a flurry of hill snow across the southwest, but for many areas we're just expecting rain into Wednesday morning. So a fairly cold start to the day, but frost a little more limited due to the cloud cover on Wednesday morning. So a slightly cloudier start to the day compared to today to come tomorrow, and more in the way of cloud through much of the day. Still though feeling quite bright across many eastern areas, and northern Scotland will see the sunshine by lunchtime. But across the south and west, notice this band of rain becoming quite heavy actually across many southern areas. There's some uncertainty as to how far north this rain goes, and as a result where there's a risk of snow, so please stay tuned.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as
and now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good morning. Thanks for your company. Live from Washington, D.C., this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. Really terrifying footage this, which I'll share with you in just a minute. There's been a shooting at an ice rink in Rhode Island. 3 people are dead. Apparently, according to law enforcement sources, a father shot his wife and 3 children. One of them has survived and they're fighting for their life in hospital. I'll bring you updates on that throughout the night. Elsewhere, President Donald Trump is making his way back to Washington, D.C. after spending the weekend at the so-called Winter White House in Florida. We're expecting him to address the press during the show. Hopefully, we'll get his words in just a tick. Also tonight, a storm has erupted on X today as Congressman Fine posted the following message saying, quote, "If they force us to choose between dogs and Muslims, it's not a difficult choice." I'll explain why that post has gone viral and the row behind it in just a second. And President Trump has also said that those responsible for the abduction of Nancy Guthrie, the mother of the US news presenter Samantha Guthrie, must release her unharmed or face the most severe federal penalties. That includes the death penalty. I've got the latest on that tragic case from a top cop. And have you seen this clip? It's been going wild online. It's Chelsea footballers at the weekend infuriating not just millions of football fans, but normal, reasonable, decent human beings as well. I'll tell you why in a minute. I'm Ben Leo. This is The Late Show Live. And remember, no breaks this hour. Welcome to The Late Show Live. Joining me this evening in Washington is my panel, the former policy advisor to Barack Obama, Laurie Watkins, and the political strategist, Matthew Hurt. And in London, the journalist and political commentator who smokes 50 a day, Benjamin Butterworth. Hello, Benjamin. Thank you for your company. Right, let's move on to one of our top stories this hour, and it's going to be an interesting debate. It certainly is a talker. A storm has erupted on X today as Congressman Fine posted the following message saying, quote, "If they force us to choose, the choice between dogs and Muslims is not a difficult one." So this post was made in reaction to a tweet shared by Palestinian activist Nadine Kiswani, who said, quote, "Finally, New York City is coming to Islam. Dogs definitely have a place in society, just not indoor pets. Like we've all said along, they are unclean." Kiswani later tried to suggest the post was a joke in reference to the online upset over dog poo left around New York City. However, Congressman Fine, along with many other online users, have taken her original post very seriously and have moved to defend man's best friend. There are some people replying to her post as well, saying that, yes, dogs should be banned from New York City. Let me know your thoughts on this. gbnews.com/your say. With me now is political commentator Fahima Mohammed. Fahima, good morning. Thanks for joining us again. Should dogs be banned from New York City? Are they unclean?
You know, we need to separate this. We have one activist expressing a conservative religious opinion about dogs being unclean indoors, which is a view not held by all Muslims. And some Muslims do keep dogs in separate areas of the house. And some scholars say that, you know, this kind of impurity only applies if saliva contacts clothing before prayer. And it's a matter of personal religious observance, not public law. But when a sitting US congressman responds by comparing Muslims to animals, that stops being a debate and becomes dehumanization. Neither side is engaging in reasoned discussion. One is asserting belief and the other is degrading 3.5 million American Muslims. And that's not how pluralistic democracies function.
I guess he just took offence to the suggestion that dogs, you know, man's best friend, of course, should be banned from an entire city. And of course, I mean, what do you make of her comments as well, the activist, the Palestinian activist who says Islam is coming to New York City? What does that mean?
Well, like you said, she's an activist, and I think a lot of people, to get attention, they will be quite provocative when they're commenting. One tweet is not law. It's not going to be, you know, banning anything. There's no policy proposal. You know, we're taking it way too serious. It's just a theological opinion, which in the end, she said it was a joke. But this Congressman Fine has previously made a series of anti-Muslim and inflammatory remarks on social media, including calling Gaza civilians demons that live on earth who deserve death, advocating total surrender in war and dismissing humanitarian suffering as propaganda, and past tweets comparing Muslim politicians to extremist leaders. So he has more of a threat and the position that he is than anywhere else.
Okay. What is the theological position in Islam on dogs? Are they haram?
No, they're not haram. They are basically different laws within Muslims globally. We have so many different jurisprudential schools of thought, and you know, some view them as prohibiting indoor pets and others allow them with hygiene conditions. Many Muslims in the West keep dogs, and American Muslims are ethnically diverse. So at the end of the day, you know, we can't reduce a global faith of 2 billion people to one activist tweet. At the end of the day, I'm born in South Africa. We have a huge amount of crime. It's quite common for us to have dogs as security. In, you know, the entire world, we don't see that as anything, Muslim or not, as something that should be. It's a personal thing anyway. I think, you know, this was just taken out of proportion and another chance for this particular congressman to go, you know, and do his usual dehumanization of Muslims.
Yeah, okay. I will just say it wasn't just the tweets. There was, I mean, hundreds from what I saw of other people suggesting, yeah, let's ban the dogs in New York and so on. So I guess that's where it's come from. Fahima, last question. Are you more of a dog or a cat person?
I don't know. I think probably cat, because I was bitten when I was younger. So no, probably a cat.
Oh, you were bitten by a dog?
Yeah. A puppy, so it wasn't serious, but I was really young, probably about 5 or 6. So for me, it was more like, and when we had security dogs, they were Rottweilers, and you know, it's quite scary growing up with that in your front garden with the security guard. So for me, it's just a personal thing. But when I see loads of lovely dogs on the buses, on the trains in the UK, and they help people, they help children with neurodiversity, with disability. So for me, I think personally they're amazing, and I have absolutely no problem with it. Muslim or not, it's not a problem for anyone. No one should enforce their religion on anybody else.
Yeah, no, quite right. I love all animals, and like you, I got chased by a rabies-ridden dog in Greece when I was small, so that kind of put me off. I do love dogs, though. I'm more of a cat person. Fahima, thank you very much. Appreciate your company this morning. Fahima Mohammed, political commentator. gbnews.com/your say. Does anybody out there, any viewers, listeners, do you think, I think I'd be hard-pushed to find somebody, I think, who thinks that dogs should be banned from not just New York City, but any big cities? Matthew Hurt is here, and Laurie Watkins. Laurie, you are a dog person, aren't you?
A dog mom, yes.
Dog mum. How many dogs have you got?
One, Whiskey Bravo.
What do you make of suggestions that they should be banned from cities and towns and even your home?
Well, I think it's absolutely ridiculous, and that would never happen, especially with the multi-billion-dollar industry for dogs and pets here in the United States of America. But I agree with Fahima, Shukran Fahima, that yes, no, this is Randy. It means thank you in Arabic. Randy Fine, Congressman, I will say this to you here directly to you because I'm not afraid. You are not a serious person. I am from the state of Florida. I am very well aware of who you are, sir, and everybody knows that you are all about the dog whistles. You continue to go after, as Fahima said and pointed out explicitly, you go after people countless times about being a Muslim. Your xenophobia rhetoric is absolutely dangerous, and you know that it is, and you continue to do so, and propose legislation and bills also that go after and directly attack people. His comments were to try to incite and evoke emotion within the community, the MAGA community, the ultra-conservative Republicans, to start going after people and comment. And again, another point of contention to create division among Americans. And I'm not here for it.
So he's a Florida congressman?
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
he got elected from the Florida legislature. I know his record. He's an opportunist.
Okay. Matthew, what's your take?
You know, Ben is a cat dad. I started my work day at 6 a.m. East Coast time, and I haven't been home at all today. And if I owned a dog, I'd have to have gone home several times and taken the dog out. The wild thing in a place like Northern Virginia, where so many liberals and progressives live, is I see so many bags of dog poo where people bag the dog's refuse up and then leave it on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely insane. So ban dog poo, but keep dogs.
Yeah, it's terrible. Rob, on your side, Rob NA, you've made me laugh. You said cats stink. They urinate all over the gaff. Gaff is British slang for home.
I'm not for cats either. So.
Ammonia everywhere. Benjamin Butterworth, are you a dog or cat person? And what do you agree with the suggestion? What do you think of the suggestion that dogs should be banned from New York?
Well, weirdly, like both yourself and Fatima, when I was a kid, I was on holiday. Obviously, I don't remember it, but I was on holiday in Barbados and had an altercation with a golden retriever, and that left me terrified of dogs growing up. I did, and I only managed.
Retriever? What?
I only managed to get over the fear of dogs when I was in Kosovo, and I was in a UN-monitored bit between Kosovo and Serbia, and there were loads of wild dogs there. But I so wanted to see this town that I walked through the wild, deranged dogs, and as of that day, I've not been scared since. So I think a bit of shock therapy is the way to do it. As for the real question, I have a friend who has a dog, and he would get very wound up because often he would book taxis, Ubers, in London, and often the drivers are Muslim, and some of them would not let the dog in the car because it was against their beliefs, and that actually did cause, you know, problems that really drove him a bit mad. So I have a certain degree of sympathy with the problems it can cause, but obviously it's not appropriate to ban dogs, and none of my Muslim friends have a problem with dogs.
OK, good to hear. By the way, just an off point, you are so middle class. When I went on a holiday to the Bahamas as a child and I found some dogs, and then I went to Kosovo and got over my fear. All right.
Yeah, that one might be true. The cigarettes isn't, but that one might be.
Yeah, OK. GBNews.com/your say. Georgie, you've said American forces, you're talking about Iran. American forces are loitering around Iran because US politicians are like children. Sad state of affairs. You said you're going to ban service dogs. Why don't you and Fahima go out for lunch? You deserve each other. Who? Me or Laurie?
No one said anything about service dogs.
I don't think, nobody wanted to ban dogs, I don't think. You didn't want to ban dogs, did you, Laurie?
Ben, dog? No. She said this person said service dogs.
Oh, right, OK.
Yeah.
But
I will say that if you are a dog owner, you better be responsible and you better pick up after your pet. And like Matthew said, nothing makes me more angry as a dog mom than seeing people who don't do that, because you're just ruining it for everybody and making all of us look bad. So cut it out.
Agreed. Well said. Right, let's move on to, I guess, a more serious story. Actually, it's a tragic story. President Trump has said today that those responsible for the abduction of Nancy Guthrie, who of course is the 84-year-old mother of a top US cable news anchor, Samantha Guthrie, they must release her unharmed or face, quote, the most severe federal penalties, which includes the death penalty. In a brief phone interview with the New York Post today, President Trump added that he would urge the Justice Department to pursue the death penalty if the 84-year-old doesn't come back alive. Nancy Guthrie was taken from her home outside Tucson in Arizona on February the 1st. The president said her abductors would face very, very severe, the most severe federal consequences if she's found dead. With me now is former chief of the Department for New York City Police, John Schell. John, great to see you again. Really enjoyed having you on last time. What will this do for the abductor of Nancy Guthrie, hearing that they would now face the death penalty? Would it change their psychology, how they behave even? Just try and give us a clue if you can.
Of course, there's a possibility. You know, they're watching, and certainly they heard what the president said. Will it change their behavior? We're not dealing with normal people here. People who kidnap 84-year-old women in the middle of the night aren't normal people, so they don't think like us. But they definitely hurt them.
Have we had any more developments about the situation with Nancy Guthrie? I know yesterday we reported how they were putting drones up in the air, trying to find, and I found this amazing, trying to find signals from her pacemaker. We also had the glove that was found as well. Is there anything more in that?
Right, so we're waiting on the DNA results to come back for that glove to see if it comes back to a person, a name. Obviously, that's what we want. The FBI, if it does come back to it, as we call a DNA hit, they're not going to be able to give out the name right away. They're going to give them a little time to go make the apprehension without raising up the bad guy, if you will. We still have the tips about the bag and the mask that I think there's 17 Walmarts in the Tucson area that they're going through their videos, see if they find someone matching the description of who bought that bag. The tips are still coming in, but honestly, this is a very desperate time right now. And if that DNA does not come back to a direct hit, what they'll do is they'll see if it matches the DNA in a home to see if it is the glove to that home. But it's 16 days into this. We're at the point now where it's always been desperate. Now it's really desperate.
Okay. And I've said to you last time I spoke, John, I guess as the days continue to go on and the longer this takes, I'm afraid to say the chances, am I right, of her returning in one piece get slimmer?
Well, besides, obviously she's an 84-year-old woman. Her medication, we don't know if she has it. She needs it to survive. So that's a bad situation 16 days ago, let alone now. Where is she being stored or housed, if you will? Is she still alive? These are questions we just don't know. But for an 84-year-old mom and grandma, those are some tough circumstances to survive.
Yeah, indeed. And I'll say again, I've said it for the maybe third or fourth night running, if she is returned in one piece, how is her quality of life going to be after that? I mean, goodness me. John, thank you very much for coming back on the Late Show Live. Really appreciate it, and we'll catch up soon.
My pleasure. Have a great night.
Let's cross live to President Trump, actually, who was speaking a few moments ago, who has been talking to reporters on Air Force One on the way back to Washington, D.C. Let's take a look.
Just funding, sir.
I will, but, we have to protect our law enforcement. They've done a great job. I just got finished saying that we have the best crime numbers we've had in many years, and on murders, 125 years. And that's despite a lot of people that shouldn't have been let into our country coming into our country, criminals, many, many criminals. But we've taken out tens of thousands of people, brought them back to their countries. Many of the criminals that were brought in, allowed to come in, have been removed. So, we're okay. But to have the best crime numbers, which aren't made by me, these are made by people that do that, many left-leaning. We have the best murder numbers, horrible thing to say, but we have the best murder numbers since 1900. That's before my father was born. 125 years, think of it. The best crime numbers since 1900 having to do with murder, and really good crime numbers, the best in years.
Are there any demands that Democrats are making that you're okay with?
I don't like some of the things they're asking for. We're going to protect law enforcement. We're going to protect ICE. They're part of the whole system that is working. In Washington, D.C. now is considered a very safe city. When I took over, it was a city that we were losing 2-3 people a week. Over 100 people a year were being murdered in Washington. Now it's considered a very safe city. And we did that. I did it over a fairly short period of time, too.
On DHS,
Recent news reports have discussed the widespread belief that Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski are in a personal relationship. Is that a bad look? Recent news reports have discussed the possibility that Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski are in a close personal relationship. Is that a bad look, and do you think she'll be in the job much longer?
I don't know about that. I mean, I haven't heard that. I'll find out about it, but I have not heard it.
Do you think that will you give your State of the Union speech if we're still in a shutdown next week?
Well, I think I would. It wouldn't bother me. I would give it, yeah.
How are the negotiations going?
With what? Which one? We have a lot of negotiations.
No, with the government shutdown.
This is a Democrat shutdown. This has nothing to do with Republicans. This is a Democrat shutdown. They're upset that the crime numbers are so good. They're very unhappy that the crime numbers are so good. They're very unhappy that there's a movement for getting voter ID. They want voter ID. The population, 98%, want voter ID. They don't want voter ID because they want to cheat at elections. They also want other things. They don't want mail-in ballots. They want to end mail-in ballots, which is corrupt. And one other thing that they're insisting on is proof of citizenship. And the Democrats don't want to give proof of citizenship. They don't want to give voter ID. Think of it. Who wouldn't want proof of citizenship? I ask you, Steve. Who wouldn't want voter ID? And why would you want mail-in ballots if you know it's corrupt? It's a corrupt system. We're the only country in the world that has this system of mail-in ballots. Think of it. The only country in the world that has this system of mail-in ballots. Because they cheat. And the fact is they could never get elected if they ever changed. They know it. If you had voter ID, if you had proof of citizenship, they could never win an election. And they know that. And they're fighting to the hill. And I put this down with men playing in women's sports. I put it down with transgender for everybody. I put it down with their horrible open border policy as being ridiculous. They don't want voter ID. No voter ID. And I put that down in the same category with men playing in women's sports. I'm going to add a fourth category. They don't want voter ID. Go ahead.
So Hillary Clinton said in an interview today that she and her husband are getting pulled into the Epstein matter to divert attention from you and that your administration has something to hide. What's your response to that?
I have nothing to hide. I've been exonerated. I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. They went in hoping that they'd find it and found just the opposite. I've been totally exonerated. In fact, Jeffrey Epstein was fighting that I don't get elected with some author, a sleazebag, by the way. And I've been totally exonerated. No, they're getting pulled in, and that's their problem. I don't know, they're going to have to see what happens. But I watched her in Munich, and she seriously has Trump derangement syndrome.
Do you think that she should publicly testify?
You know, I've been totally exonerated on Epstein, and it's really interesting because they've been pulled in. Think of it. They've been pulled in. Clinton and many other Democrats have been pulled in, yeah.
The USS Gerald Ford, which is sprinting from the Caribbean to the Middle East, is about to hit its 8-month deployment mark. Usually they're deployed for about 6 months or so. Is there any concern that U.S. carriers are being stretched too thin?
I'll answer the question later.
Mr. President, you're warning Cuba to make a deal. What does that deal look like? What do you want them to do?
Cuba is right now a failed nation. They don't even have jet fuel to get for airplanes to take off. They're clogging up their runway. We're talking to Cuba right now. I have Marco Rubio talking to Cuba right now, and they should absolutely make a deal because it's really a humanitarian threat. And we have a lot of great Cuban Americans, and they're going to be very happy when they're going to be able to go back and say hello to their relatives and do things that they should have been allowed to do for a long time. I'm very interested in the people that are here that were treated so badly by Castro and the Cuban authorities. They have been treated horribly. So we'll see how it all turns out. But Cuba and us, we are talking. In the meantime, there's an embargo. There's no oil. There's no money. There's no anything.
If a deal isn't made, would you consider an operation like the one in Venezuela?
I don't want to answer that. Why would I answer that? If I was, it wouldn't be a very tough operation, as you can figure. But I don't think that'll be necessary.
Mr. President, Marco Rubio received really positive reviews in Munich. Is there
very good reviews.
Is there a scenario in which you would support him at the top of the ticket in 28?
Something I don't have to worry about now. I've got 3 years to go. So it's something I don't have to worry. JD's fantastic and Marcos, they're both fantastic. I think really, And I think Marco did a great job in Munich.
President Xi, in your talk with him recently, warned about sending more weapons to Taiwan. What was your response to him? Are you going to send more weapons to Taiwan?
I have a response. I'm talking to him about it. We had a good conversation, and we'll make a determination pretty soon.
Tell us about your trip.
We have a very good relationship with President Xi. In fact, I'll be going, I guess, in April.
I'm sorry. Tell us about your trip to Rome, Georgia on Thursday, your trip to Marjorie Taylor Greene's old district.
Well, we have a lot of people that want to take Marjorie Taylor Greene's place, and many, many candidates, and I have to choose one. And they say whoever I endorse is going to win, but we have a lot of good candidates who want to take her place.
So your Board of Peace meets for the first time this week. You said it could be the most consequential international organization ever. That's a high bar. What do you want for this first meeting?
Well, I think it can be. We're going to have all world leaders. They're putting up tremendous amounts of money. And I think it's going to go far beyond Gaza. I think it'll be peace all over the world. And we're working in conjunction with the United Nations. Look, the United Nations is there. They haven't lived up to potential. The United Nations has great potential. They haven't lived up to the potential. But I think they might aid us a little bit. But we have the greatest leaders in the world joining the Board of Peace. And we'll be doing it in conjunction with, in some cases, the United Nations. And see if we can get the United Nations to get on the ball.
You've been a kingmaker in a lot of Republican primaries. A lot of people,
including foreign nations. I was very honored to see that a very wonderful prime minister in Japan won by a landslide. I think she was going to win, but she won by just about the biggest vote ever in Japan. And she attributed my endorsement for that. And that's very good because we have a great relationship with her and Japan.
a lot of Republicans in D.C. are asking you to endorse John Cornyn, but you haven't yet. Is there a chance you would endorse Paxton, and why haven't you endorsed Cornyn?
I just haven't made a decision on that race yet. It's got a ways to go, and I haven't. He's a good man. John is a good... I like all three of them, actually. I like all three. Those are the toughest races. They've all supported me. They're all good, and you're supposed to pick one. So we'll see what happens, but I support all three.
Are you going to get involved in the rift between UAE and Saudi Arabia?
No, I'm not. I would be.
What do you think of that?
I would be. Well, I could settle it very easily. But they have they do indeed have a rift, and we can get it settled very easily. I settle wars. I settle a lot of rifts between countries. You've been noticing, right? That's an easy one to settle.
On Venezuela, Nancy Rodriguez last week said that Nicolás Maduro is still a legitimate president and is innocent. I know you said the relationship is a 10, but I'm curious what's your thoughts on that?
I think we have a great relationship. I think she probably has to say that. I think politically maybe she has to say that. But the relationship with Venezuela, she's doing a very good job. And I fully understand that statement.
You're going to have Ukraine talks tomorrow as well in Geneva with Witkoff and Jared Kushner. What are you expecting there? Is there
they're big talks. It's going to be very easy. I mean, look, so far, Ukraine better come to the table fast. That's all I'm telling you. We are in a position. We want them to come. And by the way, I watched AOC answering questions in Munich. This was not a good look for the United States. I watched Gavin Newsom answering questions in Munich, and this was a bad look for our country. These two people are incompetent. And at least Hillary's competent. She's just Trump deranged. She was so deranged. She is an angry woman, but I watched the other two speaking and answering basic questions. Look, Gavin has destroyed California. And AOC, I never heard her speak very much, and they started answering questions. She had no idea what was happening. She had no idea how to answer, very important questions concerning the world. But she can't answer questions concerning New York City either, because New York City is got some problems.
Now that Gaza's entering phase 2, should Israel lift its ban on foreign journalists being allowed into Gaza?
We'll be lifting a lot of bans pretty soon. I think you're going to see everything opening up. Gaza, look, we have peace in the Middle East. Now, you have some flames here and there, but we essentially have peace in the Middle East, and that happened primarily when we did the B-2 attack on the potential nuclear power. They would have had a nuclear weapon within 1 month. If that happened, it would have been a whole different deal. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
The $5 billion that you announced yesterday for the Board of Peace, is that a down payment, or
that has been spent in the Middle East by Bush, by Obama, by all of these people, by Biden. I mean, the money he spent. But the money he spent, you know, that's such a small amount of money by comparison. But we want to make it successful. I think it has the chance to be the most consequential board ever assembled of any kind.
What was called for Ron DeSantis?
Great. We had a great time. And Ron and a couple of other people, two great coaches, as you know. The two greatest coaches, I would say, certainly in college football. And we had a good time playing golf. Thank you very much. I didn't get to play today because I'm working on other things, very important things, much more important than golf. Thank you very much.
Melania for Valentine's, Mr. President?
She's on the plane. Melania's on the plane. We have a movie star on the plane.
Did you have any Valentine's Day plans with her?
Did I what?
Did you do anything for Valentine's with her? Did you give her flowers?
I better not tell you that. Goodbye, everybody. That's the toughest question. No, she's very, I'm proud of the fact, you know, her movie's so successful. It's a tremendous hit. And she does a good job. She does a very consequential work. I think you're going to see in the end that she's going to go down as one of the truly great first ladies. When you see what she's doing with Russia, Ukraine, and so many of the other things she's doing, she's done a good job. She works very hard.
Is Westmore invited to the White House this week, Mr. President?
Just so you understand, the governors were all other than two. One was from Colorado, where he's got a 73-year-old woman who's probably got serious cancer, confined, and for some time in solitary confinement because she pointed out the voter theft that was taking place. In other words, she pointed it out. They arrested her and they gave her a 9-year sentence. And he better let her go because it's a disgrace. And the other guy's just a bad governor. He's not doing a good job. Wes Moore, he's doing a terrible job. And you can see that. Well, I didn't invite those two. If the rest of them don't want to show up, that's okay. I hear they're coming, a lot of them. The White House is a great place to be. But no, I don't like the job that Wes Moore's doing. I don't like the job he's doing at the bridge. I don't like the fact that he did that horrible, you know, with the pipes and the Potomac. And he's not doing the job. They got to do it, and I'm going to have to get the federal government involved in getting it fixed because he can't fix anything. Thank you very much.
Okay, there we go. That was President Trump speaking on on Air Force One, which is just landing, as far as we are aware, at Joint Base Andrews. Heaping praise on Melania, his wife, the First Lady, saying she's doing a great job. She'll probably go down, according to Trump, as one of the most consequential First Ladies in history. Talked about the 2028-29 election. Who will be replacing President Trump? Reporters suggesting that Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, will be top of the ticket. President Trump saying, look, I don't need to talk about it right now, but J.D. Vance, the Vice President, he's doing a great job. Talking about Cuba, urging Cuba to make a deal with the United States, call them a failed nation. And particularly, guys, panel, Matthew and Laurie, I wanted to talk about voter ID. Because there's this big row, Matthew, going on about voter ID in the US at the moment. And President Trump was saying no other country in the world has this problem. I mean, the United Kingdom probably has something to say about that. What is the issue with voter ID? Why don't people want voter ID in this country?
You know, it should be easy to vote and hard to cheat. Many Democrats and those on the left say that it is near impossible for a voter to secure a driver's license or a passport. I would say passport is a little bit more difficult, but a driver's license. Although you have to get a driver's license to show your ID to buy alcohol at the store. You have to get a driver's license to go into Georgia Senator John Ossoff, a Democrat, had a political rally 2 weeks ago, and he forced attendees to show a driver's license to participate. So this is something that it is not impossible. It is not particularly difficult to get a driver's license, and it is something that some Democrats and those on the far left say this is it disenfranchises people.
What is the argument, Laurie, against voter ID?
So it's not for me that anything having to do with voter ID. Yes, there are going to be more barriers, but I'm not gonna use that as my number one issue against this right now, because I think that that's what the Republicans want you to use, because they're like, see, this is easy. You should all be for this, and I am. It is the extra requirements for people to show your passport or show that you are a U.S. citizen. Let's be very clear just to begin with. If you are a non-citizen in the United States of America, it is against federal law for you to vote. That already exists, so nothing needs to be changed about that. And the claims that Donald Trump... Sorry?
But they do, though.
It is it's like 0.01%. There was only 12 cases in the entire U.S. system during our last election. There are no problems here in the United States compared to other countries. And the claim that Donald Trump makes about that is absolutely unfounded, unsubstantial, and not found by facts. You can look it up, Ben, the number of cases that have been found. And how many, 47 different federal judges came out to say against Donald Trump's claims that there was a stolen election in 2020, that was wrong, and those claims, again, were not based on fact. So that, along with the requirements to make it harder for people with vote by mail, that's also going to contribute to people's disenfranchisement from voting. If you get rid of early voting, like Republican legislatures are doing across this country, making it harder for people who work, people who have kids, people who are caretakers to people, making that another barrier for them. There are not enough polling places in the entire United States of America to have a fair voting system if you did not open up vote by mail, which means that people can fill out a ballot at home and mail it in through the United States postal system.
Yeah, I don't know what the problem is. Benjamin Butterworth is still down the line. Benjamin, we're just looking at pictures of Air Force One, which has landed at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland, just outside Washington, D.C. President Trump going to be departing the plane imminently. Maybe that's him coming now, is it? Let's take a look. No, we can wait. Voter ID, Benjamin, what is the issue? I mean, Laurie's saying, it makes it harder, maybe disenfranchises people to go and vote. I mean, you have to do it for buying cigarettes or alcohol or getting into clubs. I mean, what is the big deal?
Well, we don't have a problem with voter fraud. It is minuscule to non-existent in the UK. But we do have a
Tower Hamlets.
We do have a problem with getting people to vote. And so I think anything that puts a barrier in the way of that is quite the problem. And also, for example, in the rules that were introduced in the UK, you had a situation whereby your pensioner's bus pass, which proved your age, could count, but your young person's bus pass couldn't. And so it did look a little bit like, in the UK as in the US, these rules are introduced for gerrymandering and amending the electorate rather than concern about fraud.
And can I just say, Ben, can I jump in here? That another provision in the Save America Act, that only the House, just so your viewers are aware, only the House has passed this. The Senate still has yet to take this up. It involves another requirement, and across the world, people are seeing the Department of Homeland Security under Kristi Noem's failed leadership about what is happening in cities across the United States of America. This bill also opens that up to a mandate for local election systems to share that data on voter data for all of those citizens in those districts with the Department of Homeland Security. So there are privacy concerns that are involved here. This has not been just about voter ID. And that's, again, what they want you to focus on is we should all be for voter ID. And again, I am. You should be able to check and validate that the voter ID card that I'm bringing to the table is the person that's voting. I'm all for that. But sharing data that has never been done with an agency that time and time again has been known to exploit that data and target U.S. citizens, I don't agree with that.
Somebody on your say, Laurie, has said, come on, Laurie, the U.S. needs voter ID, and you know it.
And we have it already, guys.
Wait, let me read it. So yes, there's a problem because every registered voter gets a mail-in ballot, easy to commit fraud. Democrats are unhappy with voter ID. How hard is it to get an ID? Not at all. You need to get you need it to get welfare benefits, so Democrats should have no problem.
Well, there, you just lost me when you brought up the welfare benefits and start pivoting to that, because now you're making a judgment against people, and that's not based on facts.
There are a number of laws that states can enact, and Minnesota has enacted such a law that I can go on election day or early voting and take 8 of my friends and say, I attest that this person lives down the street from me and I know them. And that is some form of identification. Laurie makes a good point in the sense that she's not going to argue against voter ID. And I remember 16 years ago when Republicans opposed a nationwide ID. I do think, though, that there should be some uniform identification requirements at the state level that allow someone to say, this is the person who is in front of me. They are permitted to vote. And those state voter rolls are administered by the state. They are by the state jurisdiction, not by the federal government. And then there are security and privacy concerns that Laurie's expressed, and I agree with her there. I think that, again, It should be easy to vote and hard to cheat. And there are a number of ways that traditionally blue states, Minnesota, California, and many others, make it easy for you to manipulate the system from receipt of a mail-in ballot to casting that ballot on or even after Election Day.
Okay. Interesting debate. We're just waiting for President Trump to leave Air Force One. He's at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. He is going to be going back to the White House. He has spent, as he does every weekend, the weekend in Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, the so-called Winter White House. He was playing golf yesterday. I know that for a fact because a friend of mine bumped into him at Mar-a-Lago and President Trump signed his hat and he was talking about the UK. My friend is British. He was asking all sorts of questions about the UK, who's going to be winning the next election, what the big policy issues are. So President Trump very keen to see and hear about what's happening in Great Britain. Sometimes he gives the impression when you speak to President Trump from, the time I spoke to him most recently in the Oval Office.
Here he comes.
And here comes President Trump with his big winter coat, looking very suave. He gives the impression that he's not across the detail, but I think he has more of a touch on Great Britain than he likes to let on. There's Melania as well, looking fab, looking very glamorous, fashionable with her big shades on. So the President and the First Lady making their way off Air Force One, heading back to the White House. Today, viewers and listeners, it's President's Day in the United States, isn't it, Matthew?
Yes, it is.
What is President's Day? And next week marks 400 days of Trump's second term. So he's about 27% through his final term as US President. I think there's about 1,336 days to go. What's your take on his first 400 days?
Well, Ben, you asked what President's Day is, and that excites me a lot because it was born out of George Washington's birthday, a celebration in Northern Virginia. Virginia, the state that I live in, is home to, hails 8 presidents. And of course, the first one sent a strong message to our friends across the pond, and it sort of morphed into Washington's birthday, morphed into President's Day, a celebration of presidents. And as we are now, 100 plus days into this administration, or excuse me, 400 plus days into this administration.
Just about, nearly.
I think there are many wins. I think we're winning on securing the border. We're winning on crime. He said again, crime is the lowest, particularly violent crime is the lowest it's been since 1900. And we are turning the corner, I think, on some economic issues. But all of those will be important discussions in the midterm elections.
Laurie, President's Day to you. Big deal. It's a national holiday here, isn't it? People have a day off work.
It is a national holiday, but I have gotten the sense over the last few years that our federal holidays are kind of slipping further and further away from us. And I just say that maybe it's because I'm a business owner. I feel like we still work on federal holidays. We're still hustling, not just those of us that are here at the news desk tonight, but that people are always working, and that's just, I guess, the society that we live in here in the United States. But banks were closed, federal offices were closed here in the DMV and the Washington D.C. area, so that absolutely made things seem a lot quieter here.
Including the president. He is always working. He's just boarded, by the way, if you're listening on radio, President Trump has just boarded Marine One, the helicopter. So he'll go from Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. It's about a 10-15 minute helicopter ride to Washington D.C. He works every day of the week, every waking hour, even over Christmas when I was back in the UK enjoying myself and time with the kids. President Trump was welcoming Netanyahu to the White House. Did Zelensky,
that Christmas holiday break was
turned up
with all of the high-level meetings that he had there.
Yeah. 400 days, as I said, next week of his second term.
Right.
About 27% of the way through. What's your take on his second and final term?
Well, I feel like my head has been on a swivel, and we definitely live in a 24-hour news cycle here around the world, following what's going on. I wish this president would be more involved, though, in domestic, economic, and affordability issues here in the United States, and less focused on all of the happenings with foreign policy and believing that he can have involvement or save the day in order to get this Nobel Peace Prize that he so desperately, desperately wants.
Yeah, I think Benjamin Butterworth, let's get your take on his first 400 days. But also, I think among the White House, it is generally understood that there needs to be more attention now on the cost of living to Americans. How are you going to bring prices down? Gas prices have gone down, but I think food is still quite high. What's your take on President Trump's first 400 days?
Well, his huge tax rises in the forms of tariffs have apparently cost the average US household $1,000 since they were first enforced. And so, you know, that's a massive burden on Americans. We also know that he's trying to reduce the value of the dollar. So pretty good for us that don't live in the US, but maybe not so good for Americans. And then, you know, as a Brit and as a European, he has tried to do so much damage to NATO allies, to the West. And I think that is something that is shameful, that won't help the US and won't make us safer. So I think that, you know, he makes a lot of noise, but I don't think he gets that much done, and I do think he causes some damage.
Well, he stopped illegal migration, which I think was one of the, I mean, maybe Matthew, you can confirm, one of the top priorities of voters last time round, was it?
I think it was, and to the point here, you know, we want an American foreign policy that is strong, that supports our allies, is an American foreign policy that encourages our European partners to pay more of their fair share. It's a wonderful talking point in Europe, and Secretary of State Rubio made a grand gesture, a great speech just last week about strengthening our European partners through those partners stepping up and taking on additional responsibility.
It was a great speech from Rubio. Marine One, the helicopter, is just taking off. President Trump and the First Lady inside. They're heading back to Washington, D.C. after their weekend at the Winter White House in Palm Beach, Florida. Benjamin, you must give President Trump credit, no, for stopping illegal migration? Zero.
I don't feel I have to give him credit for anything, quite frankly, Ben. But, you know, as Hillary Clinton, the great Hillary Clinton, said in recent days, the numbers of deportations were higher under her husband as president and higher under Barack Obama, the administration that she also served in. And so, you know, I think the fact that he is going around demonising many people that look like they could be immigrants in the US is not a template that other countries should follow. So, you know, it's not for me to tell Americans how they should live their lives. But what I really hope is that parties like Reform and Nigel Farage don't look to that model, because I think terrorising your own citizens on their own streets is not freedom.
Well, but as you just said, I mean, you're a bit of an oxymoron there. You said Bill Clinton deported more, and he did. I think the number is, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, here in America, 12 million over 2 terms, which was an extortionate amount of people. So how can you on one hand praise Clinton for deporting so many, and then yet President Trump, who's deported only, I think, forcibly around 700,000, have a go at him for that?
It's very straightforward, because they did it without terrorising people on the streets, without having a state-approved militia wandering places like Minnesota. And I think that is where the danger is. It's about trying to whip up tensions, about trying to divide communities, and about people feeling fearful in the place they have made their home. That is the problem. You should deport illegal immigrants. You shouldn't let people wander into your countries. Borders do matter, but that doesn't mean that you should, you know, whip up a racist Ferrari that doesn't make countries a place to feel safe.
Benjamin, I'll tell you, well, Matthew, I'll tell you all, whoever cares and wants to listen. I think the difference is that people have Trump derangement syndrome and they don't like the man in the White House. You wouldn't have had the media circus and the attention and the social media during Clinton's era because he just wasn't Trump. And that's the difference.
Well, Lori and I have been on this program before talking about this particular issue. Barack Obama, President Obama, did deport more individuals. And what you have is refusal to entry at the border and then also deportations. And President Trump has the nearly the same point of view as President Clinton, who had 12 million both refusal to entry and deportations. It's the same viewpoint, except President Clinton didn't have roving bands of Karens looking to shut down, federal agencies and obstruct justice.
Oh, I love that. I think that's quote of the night. Didn't have roving bands of Karens, Laurie, obstructing ICE agents. Benjamin's shaking his head. Look how disgusted he is. Laurie, you first, then Benjamin.
Oh, gosh. All right. I agree with what Benjamin said, so I won't beat a dead horse here about the way in which Donald Trump and his administration is going about removing people that either are non-U.S. citizens, and even those that have entered the system and entered the United States legally are in the process of getting their permanent citizenship. Yes, the way he's terrorizing U.S. city streets, Americans, whether or not they're Republicans, Democrats, or independents, cannot erase what they have seen, the 2 Americans that were murdered, white Americans, I should say, because there have been many other black and brown U.S. citizens who have been killed at the hands of ICE here in the country. But you won't hear about them, unfortunately, because that's the way it is in this country. So those 2 individuals in Minnesota, that has caused an outrage and uproar across this country amongst even conservative podcast hosts like Joe Rogan, who have come out and said, all right, enough is enough. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous what is happening here, and this cannot go on anymore. That's the difference between these administrations and how they are choosing to enforce immigration policy.
Well, you know, people died under previous administrations during immigration raids. People were detained as well. People died in custody as well. I'll just go back to the previous point that you didn't really hear about it at the time because, I mean, as Matthew rightly said, there's no roving, what do you say, roving bans of cameras.
But Ben, what we saw under President Obama was CNN tacking on to ICE and saying that is, you know, going and following ICE during these immigration raids, and President Obama giving Tom Homan an award. We are just 11 years past the Obama administration, and the same tactics, except President Obama didn't have roving bands of Karens obstructing justice on the streets.
Benjamin, just last word to you. We should have ICE in the UK, shouldn't we? Just in 30 seconds, please.
No, I mean, we don't have the scale of the problem that the US has with the world's longest borders either side. But, no, we shouldn't have that. And we shouldn't have this revelling in terrorising citizens and making people that aren't white feel scared because somebody might think that they're an immigrant. It's not decent and it's not British. And I dare say, it doesn't strike me as very American.
OK. Thank you very much. Right, one more very quick story before we end the show. And this is I mean, it's chilling. A Brazilian social media influencer based in the UK is being investigated by Brazilian police for alleged transphobic comments she made online. Her name is Nina Borges. She posted a video to Instagram in September 2024 criticising the transgender National Secretary of Brazil, Simi Larat, and the influence of pro-LGBT organisations in the country. Basically, she went online and had a go at the whole sort of gender ideology movement. Larat, who she criticised, filed a complaint over the video, and Borges was summoned for questioning by the Federal Police of Brasilia in October. She's now being investigated for alleged transphobia and defamation. With me now is legal counsel for Latin America with the ADF International, Julio Pol. Julio, thanks for your company. This is an extraordinary situation. You have a Brazilian in the UK now facing transgender defamation crimes in Brazil. I mean, it's just insane, isn't it?
It is, as you say, it is. Aline is a UK citizen. She's living in the UK. She's posting from the UK. She's using an American platform, Instagram, and she's criticizing gender ideology. And now she's under criminal investigation in Brazil for her posts, for her videos. It is just insane.
Okay. I want to know whether she can be extradited from the UK to Brazil. What's the situation? Because if there was a slight possibility that could happen, it wouldn't surprise me to see Keir Starmer, Lord Hermer, our pretty desperate Labour government, kick her out to face the music in Brazil.
Well, that's pretty scary, and that could happen. And that we're not at that stage of a trial now, but that is a possibility that we have to consider, because this is in Brazil another case in which a public official in Brazil seeks to silence critics of gender ideology. And if you have more of those people, public officials in any other country, trying to silence their critics, then this could happen. What are they doing? They're using criminal prosecution as a tool to chill speech. I'm not sure if it's going to happen, that they're going to extradite her or not, but they're chilling her speech. And in her case, the punishment might also be the process. Just the fact that she has to spend money on her defense, the fact that she has to go through this excruciating process of defending herself. She might not be ever able to return to Brazil for visiting her parents because she can be banned from entering Brazil because of the prosecution. It is just incredible. Just because she's criticizing an ideology and just because she's criticizing LGBT minister of Brazil on her views and on the way they use their funding.
So what's your, just finally and very briefly, what's your advice to Ms. Borges? Just stay in the UK?
Well, my advice, first of all, is continue strong. She's a very strong and very brave woman. She speaks what she has to speak. She's a great researcher. What she does is she gives her research to the people through Instagram, through YouTube videos. Continue doing that. Continue explaining how gender ideology, how wokeness is bad for people, it's bad for the world. Making that accessible. First of all, that's one. Number two, continue being strong with the support of many people like ADF International, helping you in your case. And then, yes, fight. Don't be ashamed or embarrassed to fight. You have to fight. And many people like you, I'm going to say this because many people like Nina is suffering the same in Brazil and in other places. We have pastors being prosecuted for the same crime. We have influencers in Brazil. We have a veterinary student, Isadora Borges, also in Brazil, now facing criminal trial, not even an investigation, but a trial. So continue fighting, and your fight is helping other people like you that are suffering the same, an excruciating process, because if we don't fight, they're going to silence us. And this is a truth that must be said. We should say to everybody out loud that men and women are different biologically, that men cannot be women, that women cannot be men. This is not said. People will forget this simple truth, and we have to fight. And Nina is setting an example for all of us in that respect.
Yeah, careful, Julio. I'm not sure which country you're in at the moment. You may get a knock at the door from the Home Office or the Brazilian authorities for saying that. And it's just mad, isn't it? Imagine having this conversation 20, 25 years ago. You know, we got some mad legal case where a woman is being threatened with prosecution for saying that. It's just insane. It's insane. Julio, thank you very much for your company, Julio Pole. Yeah, go on. Go on, sorry.
No, the other thing I was going to say is the worst thing is that this case is brought because the crime of transphobia or homophobia is not even a legal crime in Brazil created by the democratic elected parliament. It was created by the courts. In 2019, they decided that racism was equated to homophobia and transphobia. So the court created a crime, and now they're applying this crime. They don't know how, and that's why it's so dangerous, because it's politicians using this law that was created by a court without the proper process, and now people, they are just being persecuted, harassed, prosecuted. So it's just sinister, yes.
Yeah, sinister stuff. Julio, thanks very much. Great talking to you, and we'll catch up soon. That's Julio Pole, Legal Counsel for Latin America with ADF. Right, 30 seconds left of the show. I like to do this every night. Benjamin, what are you doing tomorrow? Very briefly, any plans?
I am flying to Central America in a few hours to El Salvador.
Of course you are. Absolute middle class North.
Croatia.
Matthew Hurt, what are you doing tomorrow?
Back at work.
Yeah, good man. Rafting. Laurie?
More work and more TV.
Yeah, more working, more TV. What am I doing? I'm working. Yeah, I'll be back here tomorrow at midnight. Guys, thank you very much. Benjamin, appreciate your company. Laurie as well, Matthew Hurt, and of course, the biggest thank you of all to loyal viewers and listeners who brave the clock and stay up so late watching The Late Show Live. Really appreciate you. I'll see you tomorrow from midnight. As ever, sleep well and sweet dreams. Good night.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update. It's a chilly start out there, risk of ice for many northern areas, but it is going to be a sunny day and a dry day for many of us. We've got a ridge of high pressure in charge, bringing that dry but cold start to the day. A few showers are still clipping eastern coasts of England in particular, and cloud will thicken from the southwest into this afternoon. That's as ahead of this band of rain pushing in from the southwest, strengthening winds as well around this area of rain. But for many of us, a dry day to come. Still fairly chilly feel, particularly across the east coast, with a northerly wind making it feel colder than it really is. But temperatures will be below average for the time of year actually into this afternoon. Now the cloud does continue to thicken across southern areas, but actually for many northern areas, Tuesday evening brings a very clear night. Another cold one, in fact, and where we've got lying snow, temperatures falling below -10 degrees by Wednesday morning. More in the way of cloud building up in towards parts of Northern Ireland, as well as more central areas of the UK. And as a result, temperatures won't fall quite as low, but there's still a risk of frost by the time we get to Wednesday morning. So that rain moves slightly closer, further inland into parts of southwestern England, parts of South Wales and Northern Ireland, seeing some rain, potentially a flurry of hill snow across the southwest, but for many areas we're just expecting rain into Wednesday morning. So a fairly cold start to the day, but frost a little more limited due to the cloud cover on Wednesday morning. So a slightly cloudier start to the day compared to today to come tomorrow, and more in the way of cloud through much of the day. Still, though, feeling quite bright across many eastern areas, and northern Scotland will see the sunshine by lunchtime. But across the south and west, notice this band of rain becoming quite heavy actually across many southern areas. There's some uncertainty as to how far north this rain goes, and as a result where there's a risk of snow, so please stay tuned.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to Farage with me, Christopher Hope. Coming up on the show tonight.
I have decided to bring forward legislation to postpone 29 elections.
In what could be the mother of all U-turns, the Labour government has backed down on delaying 30 council elections in May, just days before they're due to be in court against Reform UK. Robert Jenrick joins me in a moment. Meanwhile,
seizing mobile phones to gather vital intelligence to disrupt people smugglers. Those who plan small boat crossings face up to 5 years behind bars.
migrants are being awarded hundreds of thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money, your money, after having had their phones seized while legally entering the UK. And
Labour's Chagos surrender humiliation continues.
Chagos Island's campaigners are sounding the alarm that the entire giveaway deal was built on sand and is set to collapse. And finally,
the democracy of Great Britain is under